Hey, what's up, everybody? It's John Robinson with Tuesday Talks Live. I just left a great webinar on capital raising and some of the different things that I've been learning lately about getting my own fund set up. So I jumped off of that webinar to be on this chat with you today. So I hope that you're here with me. If you are here and you're watching live, regardless of where you're watching from, I want you to drop me a comment in the chat section wherever you're watching from, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Whether you're watching live or you're watching later, just give me a quick little thumbs up or something in the comment section so I know that you're with me. I'm going to go into Facebook. I was running kind of late today on this one, so let me see. Okay, I'm going to post this in Facebook so you guys are with me. By the way, if you're here with me and you're working on something, I always like to hear what you guys are working on. So turn my hat back around. I'm looking halfway decent. All right, let's see here. Going into Facebook right now. You guys bear with me. If I see somebody's on here now, who's that? Someone let us know who you are, where you're watching from. And I'll just go on Facebook real quickly. By the way, can you guys hear me okay? I'm outside on the patio again. Beautiful day, but it's a little bit windy today. So I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. Yeah, I see some. We got one. Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna just jump into Facebook. Apologize for this, man. I was on a great Zoom call, or I'm sorry, not a Zoom call, a webinar actually, and man, it was really, really good. We were um, talking about raising capital. If you are in the business of real estate at all for real, then you are very well aware of the fact that capital is king. Cash is king. You've got to have the capital to be able to do the projects. So eventually, I think everybody ends up facing the conundrum of how do I get the money? We hear about people talking about other people's money, but how do we get access to that money? How do we use that money correctly? And so I was on a really good Zoom today. It came as a result of a webinar. It came over into a Zoom, and it was really, really good. And I hated to leave, to be honest, but I didn't want to miss you guys. So if you're here with me today, then make sure you give me a thumbs up. I see it looks like Andy's got a thumbs up there. I'm about to post this here real quickly too. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to do multiple things at the same time. It's challenging. So I'm doing it right now, but I'm not sure I'm doing it that great. Just trying to get this link over to the Facebook group. Okay, here we go. Add everybody. I'm just going to hit everybody real quickly. Okay. Okay. And post. Boom. Post that. Okay, cool. It's on. Perfect. Okay, guys. Nice to see you today. Thanks for joining us. I have a couple of things I want to talk about today, but primarily I want to talk about one specific thing because this came up actually on one of the coaching calls. Someone asked me this question, and I thought, you know what? I might as well just answer this question on Tuesday Talks today. So I want to talk about my very first deal. This is, you guys have heard me talk about my accidental flip, but I want to talk about my very first deal, real estate deal that I ever did on purpose. And believe it or not, it was not a flip. I've actually thought about this and thought maybe I should go back to doing this because it was such a good ROI, such a good return on investment that I just thought, man, this is just the way to go. So my very first deal that I did on purpose, I just want to give you guys a chance to guess. Anybody have any guesses on what was my absolutely very first deal that I ever did on purpose in real estate investing? Anybody have any thoughts? You know, you've got pre-foreclosures, you've got auction deals, you've got creative finance stuff. You know, there's so many different things it could have been, right? What was my first deal? I'm waiting to see any thoughts. Anybody drop some comments in here. I know that that everybody remembers their first deal, right? No matter how many deals you've done, you never forget your very first one. And if you're here today and you're watching this and you've never done a deal, that's okay. You are in the right place. We're glad to have you here, and it is actually is a really great. We have a great format here. We have a good time. I'm looking at the comments. Andy says a land lot. Now, I don't know if Andy just heard that or if he was reading my mind, but somehow or another, Andy guessed. I don't think I've told him this before. So, Andy, good guess. Congratulations. You win the prize. Andy guessed it was a land lot. It's absolutely correct. So, my very first deal that I ever did on purpose, intentionally, was a land deal that I did in Aloha, Oregon. So Aloha is, everybody knows, if you're from the area, you know Beaverton, Hillsboro. There's like a little stretch, a little section of area there where we call Aloha, and for some reason we call it Aloha. We don't call it Aloha, even though it's spelled exactly like Aloha. So Andy said, I must have told Andy sometime before. Andy is sitting there, he's guessing, he's telling the story. Unused land, not buildable. Andy, you nailed it. So you have a good memory. So Andy knows it, but everybody else probably doesn't know this story. So I want to share this story today. And the reason I want to share this story today is because two things. Number one, it's going to be, you're going to be just amazed at how good I did on this deal and how simple it was. Number two, it might encourage you to explore some resources that you haven't been looking at in other areas. So Andy said he was just paying attention at the meetup. That's right. Andy pays attention, he listens, he asks good questions, and he always has good input too. So very cool. Thanks, Andy. Okay, so let me tell the story a little bit. First of all, I had kind of gotten involved in, at least my interest in real estate had been piqued because I was watching a YouTube video. Probably like some of you are watching this YouTube video for the first time. I started watching YouTube videos on real estate investing. I had no idea how big, how broad of a term, how comprehensive that term actually was. But I thought, real estate investing, that's kind of cool. I'm like a construction guy. Maybe I could do some stuff like that. So I started watching YouTube videos, anything at all that was YouTube related that showed me how I could actually get involved in real estate investing. I thought, and of course my idea of a real estate investor was somebody that, was sitting in an office in a high-rise building somewhere, and they were always wearing like a sports blazer, and kind of had like their hair slicked back and, kind of this look on their face like, so I had this idea of what a real estate investor was, right? So Dual knows what I'm talking about. Dual's just jumping on here. Big John, that's right. Big Dual more. By the way, Dual, can you hear me okay? I'm outside on the patio. It's a little bit windy. You guys let me know if it's getting some scratchy feedback. If it gets too bad, then I'll step inside. But talking about my very first deal, I started getting interested in real estate investing, and I started watching YouTube videos. I was working at the Aloha campus of Intel, which, by the way, if you guys are connected to Intel at all right now, you know that you've been hurting. You've probably heard the stories. Huge layoffs right now. Intel's really going through it. But back in, it would have been 2013, 14, I was just really starting to get into, this idea of real estate investing. I was working at Intel. I had a job that required me to basically be on call for inspections, but I had long periods of time where I was just basically sitting at my desk waiting for one of the contractors to request an inspection so I could go out and do like a site walk, check all the seismics and make sure the plans were followed in accordance with all the requirements from Washington County Building Department. So my background being construction allowed me a really good job at Intel, but I had a lot of time where I was down with nothing to do. So instead of just scrolling the internet, I said, hey, I'm going to start learning something. I started putting my time to use. Some of you are watching this right now. You're trying to make good use of this little hour that you got. So I'm watching some YouTube stuff, and I come across this guy known as the Land Geek. So if you guys, he's still in business today. He still sells his courses. Much more money to buy his course now than it was for me. But Mark Podolsky is his name. I believe he's based out of Arizona, and he had the Land Geek, and it was basically a little kind of you guys get the idea, like a format that allowed you to go on and learn by watching the videos and then jumping on the live calls where you could ask questions. But what he taught, in essence, is what I'm going to tell you guys today that you guys can go out and go do. I'm not going to give you all the details like he has in his course, but if you're interested in his whole thing was like learn how to make money off of real estate without renters, without what was it? Without no renters, no rats, and there was something else. No remodeling. That was just his big thing. No renters, no rats, no remodeling. So his whole thing was like, who wants to deal with renters, right? He's like, not me. Who wants to deal with these nasty properties with rats and hoarder houses? Not me. You know, who wants to deal with remodeling if you're not in that business? His thing was not me. So what he taught was he taught people how to go on to county websites, and there's a very specific type of request that you have to usually make, and you also have to contact a specific type of person with each county. And but if you do it right and if you be persistent, you can actually get access to a list of properties that are in tax delinquency. And so tax delinquent properties are more often than not going to be better deals on them way out kind of in the boonies. His whole thing was focused on these rural areas, focus on areas where you're seeing a lot of people actually offer land for sale, because those are areas that at least there's people that are buying in that area, because they wouldn't be offering it for sale if there wasn't people buying. So he kind of goes through this whole entire thing. Yeah, Sherry says not me, right? Yeah, Sherry doesn't want to be dealing with rats and renters and remodeling either. So, I personally didn't mind the rats, because I was always like, well, the bigger the mess, the nastier the property, then the probably the better the deal. But what I learned from my very, very first deal through Mark Podolsky's Land Geek course was that you could get access. And so I was at Intel, I was always just firing off these emails to all. I basically had a list of every single county in the state of Oregon. I was emailing this one particular person that you had to ask for, and there's a little bit of a different, every county has a little bit of a different structure, so you had to kind of find out who this person was. You had to get this request, but in the long run, what you ended up with was a list of properties that were in tax delinquency. Okay, now what does that mean? That means everybody knows that this is America, right? And you guys hear me say from time to time, I said this a lot whenever, especially as a pastor, I would say, it's a semi-free country, okay? So this is America. God bless America. I love this country. I've been all over the world. I've been in a lot of different places. I've seen a lot of different stuff. And I can tell you, hands down, America is my favorite, okay? But having said that, we kind of have this funny saying. We say, land of the free, home of the brave, right? Whereas I don't really typically meet a lot of brave people in America. I meet a lot of people that are super focused on living comfortably. So you can't really focus on comfort and still afford to be brave, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing is land of the free, home of the brave. Well, you're not exactly. Not most people aren't brave. Maybe used to be, but not anymore. And then people are not free, because you're not free. You're not a free citizen. You're not a free sovereign citizen. And that gets into some whole crazy stuff that I don't want to get into today. And I don't really even prescribe to all of that. But I do believe that, God created us to be free. And he gave us the ability to be free, truly free, through Jesus Christ. He says, if the Son, therefore, shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. So he that is a servant to sin is not free. You're a slave to sin. But this isn't an hour for preaching. This is time to talk about real estate. So I was digressing there, but in a good way. Anyway, I don't think that you're free when you have to pay property tax. Okay, I'm just saying. You don't own your land if you have to pay tax on it. And property taxes is a whole big debate, and whether or not it's constitutional is, that's the whole conversation, right? But the point is, you think that you're free, you think you should own your land, well, try not paying your property taxes for 3 years and watch them sell it off at the auction at the sheriff's department, and there goes your land, right? Because if you don't pay the property tax on any property you own, then the government will come and they will take the property back from you, or they will sell your property to someone who will pay the taxes. So what that means is there's a whole bunch of properties in every county that are behind on property taxes because for whatever reason the taxes were not getting paid. And I went through this course, found out how to get a hold of those types of properties, and then you're supposed to write a letter. And I got impatient. Okay, I know it's hard to believe, but I got impatient, and I didn't want to be. First of all, I was like, I didn't want property out in the middle of, the boonies anyway, right? So who wants property way out in Klamath? I was like, I want to find properties right here. So I started looking in the Washington County area, and I looked for properties that were behind on taxes. I had to jump through a bunch of hoops with Washington County because they did not make it easy, and they've even made it harder since then. But I got onto Washington County's website, and I got down to their office, and I actually had to pay money to get this list, and then I had to jump through a bunch of hoops. But I got in my hands a packet of properties that were behind on taxes. Okay. So I started looking, and here's what was crazy about it. I'm looking at this list of properties. I came back on my lunch break. I've been down at the Washington County office in downtown Hillsboro. I came back to my desk at Aloha. I'm looking through this, and I found a property. It was a lot. It was probably not even really a quarter acre, but this lot, this bare dirt, like Andy said, he was listening, so he heard me tell the story before, but I find this bare dirt lot, and it's kind of sandwiched in between an apartment complex, and then there's like a triplex in front of it. And so there's an apartment complex on one side of it, there's an triplex in front of it, and then on the other side of it and behind it are houses, residential houses. So it's kind of like landlocked back in this little awkward space. But here's what was crazy. It was literally across the street from my desk at Intel. So what I did was as soon as I got a chance, I took my break, and I just on foot, I walked around. I walked across the Tualatin Valley Highway, walked across TV Highway, right there where you guys remember there used to be the old car wash, right there on the corner across from Intel, and it's actually it'd be the what would it be? It's the the northeast corner of the whole new Reedsville development. So everything that's going on in Reedsville right now, this would be the very, very northeast tip of that. And I went across the street, and right there behind, like the first street back, it kind of runs back behind Safeway and all that stuff. I can't remember the name of the road, but there's an apartment, there's the triplex, there's a house, there's another house. But I walked down this kind of driveway behind the apartment complex, and there's this lot that's overgrown, got this old dilapidated fence all the way around it. Sure enough, it's like real. There's nothing on it except for weeds and trees and an old shed in the back somewhere. You could see it was kind of all buried. It was clear nothing had been done to this property for literally for years and years and years. So I now have confirmed with my eyes that there's nothing on this property. I have it on a list. I checked the tax lot ID number. It's it's behind on taxes, and it's coming up. It's 3 years behind. I think in the state of Oregon, they can't really do anything until you're 3 years behind. It had gone through all the processes, all of the times for people to fix it, and it was now scheduled for auction. And there was an auction date coming up. So I just, I just did what I was told to do, right? In the course, I reached out. I sent a letter to the seller. It was a handwritten letter. They lived in Arizona. It was I found out later it was an older gentleman and his wife. They owned the property, had owned it for years. They had bought it thinking that they could build on it. Then they found out from the county that it was landlocked and they couldn't do anything with it. And they had tried this, that, and the other. So distressed property, right? Remember, our best deals come from distressed properties and distressed sellers. Furthermore, not only did they know that they couldn't do anything with it, they had since they purchased it years later, they had moved down to Arizona to get out of the rain, and they were in a home for seniors because this gentleman had come on with dementia, so she was kind of taking care of him. It was like out of sight, out of mind. It's a little tiny sliver of land. They hardly paid anything for it. They had counted it a loss. She told me she was literally just going to let it go back to the county because she actually called me. I didn't know about skip tracing or any of that stuff back then. I just wrote them a letter. So this lady calls me. She wants to know, she's like, well, you can't do anything with that property. I said, well, I'm a construction guy. Maybe I can do it. She's like, no, we checked all that. We checked with the county. We did this, that, and the other. And I said, well, I'm just curious, would you sell it? She's like, well, I don't know why anybody would want to buy it. I said, well, it's about $750 in taxes that are owed. I said, how would you feel if I just wrote you a $500 cashier's check and you sent me the deed? She's like, okay, I'll do that. So this is no lie, no exaggeration. I wrote a check from my cashier's check written out of my business account, which I just opened, literally just opened. I had about $1,000 in there. I wrote her a check for $500, sent it down to the address at the senior home down there, called her to confirm that she'd received it. She said yes. She went down and got a quit claim deed because that was just something I had heard about. I didn't know anything about it. I just had to quit claim deed it to me. So she sends a quit claim deed in the mail, signed and notarized back to me. I then take that down to Washington County Tax Department. I say I own this property and I'd like to pay the taxes that are due on it. I write a check. I think if I remember right, I think I might have actually borrowed money to write the check to pay off the taxes. So I write a check for $750. They give me a clean bill of health, so to speak, and I walk out of there with having the taxes paid, and I own this property. Okay. Now remember, it's landlocked. Okay. There's nothing I can do about it. I went into the county office. I went into some different people's, and I got the same exact story that she got when they first tried to buy it and do something with it. Okay. So is this making sense so far? You guys with me so far? Should I keep telling the story? Or did I lose you guys? I don't want to bore you to tears. Sherry says I'm still preaching, just the property tax edition. Yeah, don't get me started on property taxes, Sherry. I mean, I get it, right? It's nice to be able to have paved roads and all that stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't agree with. Let's see. Duel says, do you have the new sub 2 buyer list? Dual, I do not have that, but I'm sure we can get that for you, bro. I will try to find out where we get that. Okay. Sherry says carry on. Okay, cool. All right, so here's part B, right? So part A, I figured out how to get access to delinquent properties, tax delinquent properties. And I have some other stories I could tell on that too. I went and door knocked on some people's properties, and I had one guy threaten me with a shotgun. So, but we'll not get into that today. So be careful if you're going to go out and do this. Do it wisely, because some people really don't like you showing up on their front porch saying that you know that their property is behind on taxes. I figured out how to be a little more tactful. But so I've gotten this list. I identified a property that was behind. I negotiated with the owner, purchased the property with a quitclaim deed and a $500 check. I've now paid the taxes off. I've looked into everything that I possibly can to actually try to do something with this property, because I'm thinking, man, I got an amazing deal. I put $1,250 into this, plus the cost of postage, right? And I have this property. I now own this property. Well, the property wasn't doing me much good. In fact, the taxes were now starting to pile up again. I'd owned it for almost 2 years. Was starting to get a little bit frustrated. So I went and I talked to the people who owned the apartment complex, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to buy this. I have some property I'd like to sell you. You guys can expand your property." They're like, "Why would we want to do that? We have an apartment complex." They were just literally like, making money off renters, right? They weren't interested, and they knew you couldn't build anything on it. It wasn't big enough to build another unit on. And they also like, why would we want to add anything for our tenants? Pay money just to give our tenants something better. I was like, maybe you guys can raise the rents a little bit. They're like, no, we're fine. So they weren't interested. So I sat on it for another, I think it was almost 2 years. I'd owned it for at least three and a half years by the time that what happened on this happened. Okay. What happened was I started thinking, well, if the apartment people don't want it, then maybe one of the neighbors would want it, like an actual property owner. So I went to the house around there, but all the houses had renters in them too. So I kind of just thought, well, shoot, I'm stuck with this property and I can't do anything with it. And then I got a complaint from the city that it was overgrown, or from the county it was overgrown, and there had been a complaint against it. So I'm like, now I got to start putting money into clearing it and keeping it clean. So I was just about trying to figure out what to do with it, and I noticed that one of the houses had gone up for sale. And so what I did was I waited for the property that was for sale. I waited for it to sell. And this is back, remember, when everything was selling like hotcakes, right? If you breathed a word about selling a property, it would sell, right? You had investors knocking on your door, people overpaying. So one of those types of people bought the property. They were super excited. Really nice Hispanic family was there. I went and knocked on their door, and I just said, "Hey, I don't know about you guys, but I think that this backyard that you have is just really small, And they're like, "Yeah, it's okay, I said, well, how would you like to make your backyard even bigger? And they look at me like, what do you mean? I said, well, here's the thing. I own the property here behind you. I've been looking into building on it, which was true. I said, I talked to the apartment people about maybe if they wanted to buy it, which was true. I said, but I saw you guys just moved in, and I just thought maybe you would be interested in buying this before I go build on it or put it on market or something. And they were like, well, let's go look at it. So we couldn't see it obviously because it was all overgrown. But one of the guys actually like opened up a fence and and like pulled the fence board off and like kind of hiked all the way through there. And they walked around it on every side, and they were like, man, this would be a really nice big addition to our backyard. This would make our backyard huge. So I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, how much would you want for this? And I said, well, I don't know. The tax. I said, let's look at the tax assessment. Well, the tax assessment on this property, which again, this is where I get ticked about property taxes. This is a property that, remember, the county says you can't do anything with it. It's landlocked. You don't have legal access. Blah 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 blah. But we want to put you on a tax rate based on the square footage of your lot, where they were saying that the tax evaluation, the value, the tax assessed value was $100,000, which was ridiculous. But that's how the tax rate was set up. And I argued, and they said, well, you can ask for an exception, and you have to prove that it's not worth that. And I said, well, I'll prove that it's not worth that. The fact that you guys won't give me a permit to build on it or do anything with it. But I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to fight City Hall. So I went down to the neighbors and I asked them, you guys want to buy this? They said, what? They said, how much? I said, well, look, it's worth about $100,000 according to the county. I said, I don't think it's worth that much. I don't think it's worth that much because there's some trouble that comes with it if you want to build on it. I said, now here's the thing. It's 50% of 100,000. Would you agree 50% off is a good deal? They're like, yeah, okay. And I said, well, how about this? I'm going to do you guys a huge favor. I'm going to sell it to you guys for $30,000. And to make it even better, I'm going to allow you to give me $10,000 down. So if you can come up with $10,000 down in my hand right now, then I'll let you make payments on the remaining. Actually, it was $35,000. I told them on the remaining $25,000. I'll let you make payments on that for another 2 years, and then whatever's left at the end of 2 years, you can just pay it off. How does that sound? And they're like, well, what interest rate? I said, don't worry about an interest rate. If this is fair, if you guys can do that, just no interest, no financing fees, just I'll carry the costs for total. And they kind of talked, and I got a call from them the next day. They said, we want to do it. We want to buy it. So here's the deal, guys. We actually opened escrow. I had title insurance provided on it, which I was happy to do, right? Because I didn't want to, sell a property that had issues that was going to come back to me. So remember, I paid $500 to the seller to have her quick claim the deed to me. I paid $750 to pay the county taxes, and I sold it for $10,000 down. And then I carried the note for the remaining balance of $25,000 for another 2 years with a balloon payment at the end. Now, you guys, could I have gotten more out of that property? Possibly. I mean, truly, possibly, I could have probably. If I had sat on it, if I had held on to it to today, it would be worth a lot more money. And maybe with all the development that's going on in that area, maybe one of the people that's buying some of those other areas, those other lots, would have picked it up. But here's the deal. Do you think I was sad about the fact that I paid $1,250 total and I sold it for $10,000 as a down payment, right? So I recovered my $1,250. I paid for the cost of the course that I had bought into, which I think at the time was like $5,000. So I made all my money back for the course that I had purchased. I put on a credit card that taught me how to do the thing. So I was into it for, including the course, $62.50, right? $1,250 for the lot, $5,000 for the course that I bought and that I learned from, plus the cost of postage to send the letter to Arizona, right? Postage twice because I had to send a check too. So you want to throw that in there. Don't miss that. It's a little details, right? That's the nickel and dimes that count. Guys, what I'm saying is I made a really, really, really good chunk of money on an investment that I paid to get access to the knowledge, right? So some of you guys are like, you're just trying to do everything super cheap. You want to only do the stuff for free. I just want to tell you right now, that has not really worked well for me. That's just me personally. I've always been benefited by paying to get access to certain information. It's just write the check, swipe the card. If I really want to learn it, I would much rather learn it at an accelerated pace from someone who's been there, done that, and I've always benefited from doing that. So I made all my money back on my very first deal. Okay, plus I had money coming in, and here's what was cool about it is we set it up through title and escrow to where it got paid to Santiam Escrow out there in Santiam, obviously. And Santiam Escrow had instructions to just put the money right in my direct deposit into my account. So every single month, I would have a chunk of money show up. I think I was charging them I think it was like $700 a month or something. So I was making $700 a month on top of the $10,000 that I had made. I'd already paid all my expenses on that one deal, and then I had a big balloon payment at the end for whatever the balance was after 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was. I can't even remember it. By the way, I had no idea how all that was going to work. I had no knowledge, no insurance of how everything was going to work. But I knew that if I was going to be a real estate investor, if I was going to actually get involved in real estate, I knew at some point I was going to have to, in a sense, roll the dice, right? I was going to have to take a chance. I was going to have to step out on faith. I was going to have to believe in myself in the sense of believing that, hey, I can do this. This is something that I can do. Some of you guys are stuck on analysis paralysis, and you've been there forever because you just won't roll the dice. You won't take that step. You won't invest in yourself. And if there's anything that you get out of this Tuesday Talks today, don't take away from it like John's an amazing investor. Like, that's not actually even true. I'm just a guy that's out here trying to, make things better for my family. I'm going to pursue some things I'm passionate about. I have my reasons. You have yours. But here's the deal. One difference between me and some of you is I actually do the thing. I spend the money. I swipe the card. I go to the place. I actually get out of the truck. I go. You see what I'm saying? I take action. And so one of my real estate, business coaches, Myron Golden, I'm in one of his high-level coaching classes, high level to me at least. He has higher levels even than where I'm at. But one of the things he says, Myron Golden, is action takers are money makers. You guys have to take action. At some point, you have to get out of theory and you have to actually get involved in actionable items, daily tasks. A couple of the coaching calls that I do, some of you guys know that I do some coaching with people on how to work with seniors and how to get leads that come in all the time you don't have to pay for. But a couple of my coaching students, I was just telling them this morning, here's the homework. I want you guys to do this homework, and I expect you to have this back to me by the time we do this call next Tuesday morning. And it's amazing how much progress you can make when you actually have a homework assignment, something that you are like, hey, I have to go do this thing, or John's going to hold me accountable. I'm not going to yell at them, but I'm definitely going to say, why didn't you do the homework? You paid me to coach you. Why aren't you doing the thing that I'm telling you to go do? It's amazing how just taking an action, even doing the thing. I told one of the guys today, I said, listen, you're not going to understand why we're doing this today. And I said, furthermore, you're not even going to see any direct results or benefits from doing this right now. But I promise you, down the road, just a little bit down the road, and definitely farther down the road, you are going to be glad that you did this. You're laying these foundational pieces right now. And I know it doesn't answer the today money question, but for sure it's going to set you up for some serious tomorrow money. And, it's amazing how just taking those actions, doing the thing, following the instructions, buying the course, doing the course that you buy. Some of you have bought courses and you've never actually done the thing. You never even watched through the videos, right? Guys, my first deal was a land-locked piece of dirt. It was a land-locked lot. In other words, it was completely blocked in. You couldn't actually get legal access to build. $1,250 in. If you want to count the cost of the course that taught me how to do it, you could say $6,250 because I paid $5,000 for that course. $5,000 that I didn't have. That was $5,000 on a credit card that my wife was like, you did what? And I was like, just trust me on this, babe. It's like, oh, Jesus, please help me. You guys know the feeling. But the point is, I had to spend the money. I had to do the thing, right? I had to write a letter. I had to go down to the county. And some of you guys are operating in this area where you think that this is going to happen to you without you doing the work. You have to do the work. You have to do the work. Action takers are money makers, okay? And even in the midst of doing the work, sometimes it has to be like big. You have to go all out. It has to be. You've heard of talking about massive action, not just action, but massive action. I always like to brag on Caitlin Beals because she came to our proximity event earlier this year. And Caitlin came in and she was like, it was the beginning of the year. She'd been in the PDX REI group. She'd come to some of the meetups. She'd even bought a course on how to become a transaction coordinator. She was like, this isn't me. She came in at the beginning of the year. She's like, I am doing it this year. I'm taking massive action, beginning with the proximity event. That she said, this is the very first thing that I'm doing. I'm coming in. Proximity event is what I'm doing. And she came in. She's ready to learn. She was writing stuff down. She was taking notes. And then she was doing the things that we were instructing her to do. She went out and took massive action. And her big, hairy, audacious goal for 2025 was to flip 10 houses this year. I don't know exactly where she's at, and I know she's probably farther behind than she wanted to be, but here's the deal. I think she's on at least number 3 right now. The year's not even halfway over, about halfway over, and she's on her 3rd flip. She's been taking huge, massive action. She's been sharing her progress. Got the FedEx truck driving by there. Sorry about that. She's been sharing her progress, and posting the processes on her social media stuff. She's basically just saying, this is what I'm doing. And she's sharing it. She's doing it. And you know what's happening, guys? You guys seeing what's happening with Caitlin Beals? Are you watching her? Caitlin Beals is getting traction. She's actually getting credibility. People are saying, hey, you know what? Caitlin's actually out there doing it. She's gaining a little bit of, I don't want to say notoriety, but she's becoming recognized. She's coming to the meetups. She's actually someone who's doing the thing. She's meeting with her contractors. She's got hard money. And she is actually out there doing the thing. Caitlin Beals is an action taker. Back in 2013, 14, whatever year it was, I can't remember, John Robinson took action. And the very fact that you're here watching today is a byproduct or a result of me just deciding I'm going to do it. I swiped the credit card. I paid $5,000 to get a course on how to find tax delinquent properties, how to write a letter, what to say, what not to say, how to structure your offer, and then what to do with it on the back end. And here's the thing, I didn't even do everything they said, but I at least had the components that I needed to go and do what I did, and it worked. And I want to encourage you guys today, if you've been on the sidelines, you've been kicking the can down the street, if you've been wondering about, well, I don't really know where I fit in this, just do something. Do something. Doing something is better than nothing, right? You guys have heard me talk about this before. The best thing you can do in any situation is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. The worst thing you could possibly do is nothing, right? That doesn't apply to every single situation, but it'll go for a lot of stuff in life. So I hope this is encouragement to you guys today. I hope that you guys enjoyed the story. Let me know what kind of feedback you might have based on some of the input that you've been given today. What are you guys thinking about? What are you working on? Who has a question? Got about 5-6 more minutes we'll go here today, and I'm going to let you guys off early today because I've been trying to make these calls not go so long. So does this help anybody? Is this encouraging to you guys? Do you guys say, like, John, I don't believe it. I need to see the HUD statement. I want to see the closing documents. I can go dig it out somewhere. It's probably in a box buried in the storage container from our move, but that's actually what happened. $1,250 invested into the deal itself. $5,000 invested into the education. A couple bucks invested into the stamps and the envelopes. And then just some of my time going through and doing it, and it actually worked. I made whatever the ROI is on that. I don't even know. I'm not really good on all that stuff. So someone do the math on what's $62.50 invested and a return of $35,000, because that's the exact numbers. And of course, the $5,000 education model, I've been able to use that over and over and over again. So you could technically take that and spread it out across the multiple deals that I've done since then. You see what I'm saying? But even if we piled all that into that one first deal, I made all my money back. I 5x'd my investment, and it something like that. 5x'd it, about 5.5x'd it. Not too bad, right? So if you guys are sitting on the sideline, if you've been in a slump, go do something. If you're like, John, I don't know what to do. I literally, I have analysis paralysis. I cannot figure out what to do next. Shoot me a message. You guys have my phone number, most of you. If you don't have my phone number, you can certainly reach out to me. Just say, hey, John, I'd like to connect. Find me on Instagram. Find me on Facebook. Most of you guys know how to get a hold of me, but if you're watching this right now and you don't know how to get a hold of me, just find me up, hit me up on an Instagram message. Instagram, I'll see it. Facebook Messenger, I'm not as good on that because I'm not on there very much. But I want to see you guys, like I said, at the beginning of this year. The whole reason I did the proximity event is I wanted to see you guys take massive action. I wanted to see you guys get some wins. Some of you were there. You made a lot of progress. Caitlin's one of those that's made a lot of progress. I know that Andy's learned a lot. He's been implementing a lot of stuff. Several of you have really taken a next big step, but some of you are still sitting on the sidelines. So let me know what you're working on. Let me know what you need help with. I'm not seeing any comments right now. Apparently nobody's got any questions today. Let me just double check. Like I said, Dual says you have the new sub-2 buyers list. I will work on getting that, Dual. Make sure you send me a message on Instagram or on my direct cell so I can remind myself to do that. Good to see Kai on here today. Kai, good to see you, bro. I need to touch base with you about a project. Oh, let me do this real quick. I got a little house that most of you know about. I got a little house in Portland. I need someone who can patch a hole in some sheetrock plaster. It's a plaster wall, but there's a little hole that was cut out for some plumbing. I need someone to patch a hole, and I need somebody to, let's see, what else needs to be done there? Couple of little odds and ends, some super basic stuff, but I think I've got a buyer lined up for that one, and I need to get a couple of things done on that. So if you guys know somebody who's not super swamped, or if you know somebody who just wants to go over there and be involved, I'd be happy to work with anybody that can. Most of you guys know I'm in Idaho now, so not as easy for me to just jump over and do stuff on my existing properties. So, okay, guys, we're coming up on the top of the quarter till, so I hope you guys got value out of this. Sherry says 10x massive action. There we go. Woohoo for Caitlin number 3. That's exactly right. Good support there. Guys, I want you to just get out there and do something, okay? If you're in the real estate space, if you've been thinking about it, go do something. Go pull a list. Go buy a course. Send me a DM. Do something so you actually have the ability to go to bed at night tonight, and you can say, you know what, I did something today. I'm not where I want to be. I thought I would have been farther by now, but I did something today where I actually took action. And that might be the very first step of your very successful journey to whatever it is that you have. Why are you doing what you're doing? If it's important enough for you to actually think about what it is that you want, financial freedom is something a lot of people say. More time with family is something. For me personally, it's almost even more deep-rooted than that. It is, I believe, I feel, however you want to express it, like this is part of who I am. Like it's imperative for me to actually take action to pursue these things because I just feel like it's part of who I am. It's in me. I've got to have an outlet for it, right? So that's part of why I do it, and it turns out it benefits my family, it benefits my checkbook, my bank account, it benefits the community that we've been able to build here. But the main point is this: do something so that you can actually say, hey, you know what? I may not be a lot of things, but one thing that I am, I'm an action taker. All right? Okay, guys, God bless. Talk to you soon. And I will look forward to hearing from somebody here today that's like, John, I took some massive action. If you took action today, drop it in the comments. Let us know. Shoot me a DM. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.